Jason Van Dyke was not the only officer facing possible repercussions from the murder of Laquan McDonald. CBS 2 investigator Megan Hickey spoke to the former federal prosecutor involved in the prosecution of other Chicago police officers.
For our viewers, give me the bullet points of how you are connected to this case.
Well, first of all, I spent a decade in this U.S. Attorney's office and was the chief of the criminal division when I left quite a while ago. But my partner, Patricia Brown Holmes, was the special prosecutor who was assigned to investigate and, if necessary, prosecute the other persons from the Chicago Police Department who were involved in these offenses.
Okay, in a potential cover-up of what Van Dyke did.
Exactly.
Okay. Well, let me just get off the bat your thoughts about his release today. I know it came sooner than a lot of people were expecting, even though, at the time we knew, obviously, he was not convicted of the most serious offenses. Your thoughts on the release and your thoughts on, the reaction that it's starting to churn out from not just family members, but from members of the community.
His release is all too soon, given the seriousness of this offense. This man took another man's life without justification, and he served 4 years for that offense, having given a death sentence to another person. We all, I think almost all, feel that that is too soon. The question is, what can you do about that? What should you do about that? He was prosecuted to the full extent of the law in the state system. The federal government stepped aside while the state's attorney prosecuted a murder case. Doesn't get any more serious than that. That we were all, or again, almost all, disappointed by the judge's sentence and the very short term that resulted really doesn't mean that we have to change the system because of that one unsatisfactory result.
Yeah, talk a little bit about this push now, a renewed push for federal charges. Is that realistic? And I guess what would be, even if it were realistic, what would be some of the implications of pursuing that?
It is not realistic to expect that the federal government will step in now after Van Dyke has served his entire sentence. It's different, for instance, than the Derek Chauvin situation where they would simultaneous almost prosecutions. I don't think that serial prosecutions for precisely the same type of conduct is a wise policy. It's not like in the 1960s or even 70s and 80s when you had prosecutions largely in the South that were infected by racism. And so the federal government had to step in to make sure that there was a full and fair proceeding. Here, there was a full and fair proceeding. Many, me, included, was not satisfied with the result of that. But I don't think we can say that the process was unfair. So just because we're dissatisfied with the result of a fair process, do you then start prosecuting somebody for serial prosecutions? We have to be careful because that kind of precedent has to be applied across the board, not just to a single case.
Okay, so it could have a ripple effect if you start going down that road.
Yes.
And you're saying, so there's a difference between a satisfying judicial system and a fair judicial system. Those could be one and the same.
Yes, I think there is a big difference between an unsatisfactory result from a fair system and an unfair system. The latter has to be addressed. The former is a natural consequence of our system. Our justice system is administered by human beings. They will make mistakes. They will make bad judgments. We may believe firmly that this is one of them, but those are mistakes that you live with in any justice system administered by people.
Okay. Talk a little bit more, there have been a lot of questions about the federal investigation, which began before the state investigation, actually before the release of the video that was obviously so damning. People are now saying, well, what happened to that investigation? Where's the report? Why didn't we see any notes or any, obviously no charges. What happened there? And is that pretty much protocol that we never saw what happened?
Yes, a grand jury investigates in secrecy, and it does not issue a report when it is done. It issues an indictment or it doesn't. It's unlike a special prosecutor where a report is often issued. If somebody's investigated by a grand jury, no charges are brought, nothing comes forward.
Okay.
Now here, the federal government stepped aside with regard to the excessive force investigation. So they could prosecute Van Dyke for excessive force, or they could let the state prosecute him for murder. If the state didn't prosecute him for murder, I believe the federal government would have prosecuted him for excessive force. One reasonable question is, why didn't the federal government indict Van Dyke and others in a conspiracy to cover up these crimes? That's something that the federal government is uniquely able to and skilled at investigating, and that didn't happen in this case. And I think that's a legitimate question.
Could they have done that at the same time that the state was charging him for murder?
They could have done that at the same time that the state was charging him for murder. They could have waited to go forward in the prosecution. Again, just like the Chauvin case in Minnesota, where first he was tried for the state court case, then he and others are tried in the federal court.
Do you think that was a mistake? Do you think that would have changed? He maybe would then have a federal sentence.
I personally would have liked to have seen those people prosecuted for covering up the crime. Until we start prosecuting police officers for filing false reports to protect their fellow officers, we're going to see this play out again and again and again. The code of silence is real. It has to be attacked, and it has to be attacked hard.
Okay, makes sense to me. Anything else? Any other thoughts? Well, I guess maybe I'll ask you, there have been concerns that Van Dyke is getting special treatment, that, his location has been kept very secret. We just found out a couple hours ago, he's already out. We don't know where he was released from, things like that. Do you have a sense that he's getting special treatment, or is it warranted?
I don't think he's getting special treatment. I think he's getting different treatment. And there are lots of times when the Bureau of Prisons, be it the Federal Bureau of Prisons or the Illinois Department of Corrections, treats people differently for security reasons. I think that's valid. I don't think there's anything untoward going on.
Okay. Any other thoughts before I lose you?
I think the only other thing is, some people have said, well, so I think the office could be criticized for not prosecuting for a cover-up. But people ask at times, is that politically motivated? I do not think that anything that the United States Attorney's Office for the Northern District of Illinois has done is motivated by politics. Zach Farden and then John Lausch are people of integrity. They are not influenced by politics. They did what they thought was right, and no political influence, I believe, motivated any action or inaction by the office.
Okay, good to lay that down. I think that's everything I had.
Okay.
Unless, yeah, I think we hit all the main points. We'll be out in Federal Plaza today. I know.
Well,
Starting
stay
early.
warm.
So yeah,
Better today than yesterday.
Yes, exactly. So we'll keep tabs on it. And thank you so much for shedding your insight. We
My
appreciate it.
pleasure, Megan. Anytime.